is, right? That time of the year,
Yeah. So
it's okay.
first, just want to start out with like, this is huge growth from last week. And this is a number that we haven't seen before of 65.3%. So
Yeah.
shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
That's huge. We have 42.9% of our students in the dark green. And we only have,
40%.
oh, okay, let me
We have
refresh.
to add in the kids that have extra funds.
Okay. So 63.6, still haven't
It's
seen a number like
amazing.
this before.
Jessica, so tough. Don't be
It's,
so tough
I
on
know.
yourself.
You should be, we should be happy. We are now within 10 points of the goal. We started out 50 points away from the goal. So let's just like recognize that and feel happy about it. So thank you guys for all of the work that you did on your mastery check analysis throughout today. And like, I know that it takes a lot to get this done on the same day of testing and grading. So why don't we start out with just talking through the highest and lowest standards.
So the update here, so we have some of our bright spots, students who are outperforming the standard versus above 70%. So for example, we have NSC 6, NSC 3, and ED, and students are at 81% now. Also, I believe on question number 10, which is RPA 3, students perform at 90%.
That's great.
And we're seeing that there's incremental growth based on the standards. So that's definitely like a bright spot. Of course, the goal for RPA 3 and RPA 3C is still for us to get to 80%.
Okay.
So thinking about like how much growth we've made, but then also like what we need to get those students to that 80% for those priority standards. And then we have the EEA1 here at 65%, and we also have another number like reasoning at 68%, 67. Thank you, Cynthia, for adding that.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, helpful to have the questions here so we can refer back to them. All right, so let's talk about your first gap. So you chose NSA 1. Okay. And is there a particular question in here? Is it number 4 that we're targeting?
Yes. And I put this as a priority because we did have that JIT on divided fractions, and understanding the 2 different meanings of division. So I wrote that students still do not understand the meaning of division and misinterpreted the question how many groups. And we saw that in students' work because the majority of the students who got this question incorrect were multiplying instead of actually dividing. Like it's not like they even did like 112 divided by 12. So it's not like, okay, they're mixing up like what's the dividend and the divisor, like they just don't understand the operation when you're asking how many groups.
Okay.
And just to understand, you chose question 4, it was the lowest. But question 2, we got 71.4%, which is a good number, but we could get even higher, right? We should always have high expectations. So what is your idea in terms of like addressing this gap? And I love that you mentioned that we just had an RTD lesson on that, right? So that should be more fresh on their memories. And we did have questions like this, where the remainder was kind of like part of the problem. So shouldn't we think about both questions instead of only focusing on one?
Just very quickly, I prioritized question 4 because I was actually more concerned at the fact that it's a very direct question, how many groups, and by how many students actually chose to multiply instead of dividing. So it seems to me that students are still not thinking on the most fundamental level about the meaning of division, right? So it's like you have a total amount, how many groups can you get out of it? And this is an angle that we've been using in the classroom.
Yes, for 2, we had that JIT lesson, including having questions that were similar to this. There were students who used division for this, but I think we caught a lot of students kind of like counting their leg up. So, for example, like 5 and 1/3 would represent one of the friends, 10 and 2/3 would represent two
The
of the
second
friends.
friend.
Yeah, so that was interesting, I think, to see, but they still made sense of the problem, but didn't think of it.
Which is Harvard has a lot, right? We mentioned that many times, they have like some creative strategies. But I do appreciate in that you did make sense of the problem, right? You just used an inefficient strategy. But what do you guys think of, just doing maybe like a quicker review of both types of questions?
Yeah, that's why I told Andrew, I said the JIT for this should be like a quick hit, it should take more than 20 minutes. Instead of a whole 45-minute period. Particularly for that reason, because it's like how many groups, like just reinforcing the idea that like repeated addition is multiplication, but they're needing to know that the inverse operation, that like when I have a total amount, I can actually take things out of it, and that means that I'm splitting a total amount into equal groups.
Okay.
So just reinforcing that, I don't think that should take more than 20 minutes.
Have you guys seen an improvement on annotation for this type of problem?
We've definitely seen an improvement overall. With,
Great.
yeah, and a lot of the MC questions as well, because
Okay,
that's where
good.
students were lacking, just like so not showing work. So we have seen an improvement there. Not
For
from everyone,
numbers.
but increasing.
For number 2, did you see students labeling like total, part, and part?
Not necessarily. I see them actually just reinforcing the use of the 3-week strategy,
Okay.
but not actually, and that's actually a good catch. Not labeling like what is my total amount, what is the part, what is the unknown about it. So like labeling to show that they have like and like they have an understanding of the meaning of it.
So I think we have an opportunity there, right? Like in that, and I agree with you, like a 20 minutes maybe, but the annotation needs to be more strategic and more aligned to this type of problem, right? So maybe one question could be something like, okay, you read this problem, what kind of problem is that? Is this an equal group problem? How do you know? This connects with the upcoming RTG lesson that's gonna happen on Monday, which I would say it's a long lesson, so please take a moment to just maybe briefly look tomorrow morning or something, because you might get some ideas for your own lessons that you're gonna do this week. It's all about annotation and understanding of different word problems, and the idea that in every problem you should identify either the action going on the story or the relationship. So action, a word problem could be a join or separate action. I am joining numbers, I'm adding, or I'm separating quantities, I'm subtracting, or there is an equal groups relationship. So like temperature and elevation kind of problems also, they're not equal groups types of problems, but they are a timeline. You have a start, a change, and an end. So all of these types of problems are included in the RTD lesson for Monday. So you have like a big framework of all types of word problems that you see, and then for each type, what do you annotate for?
Okay.
So it's a very cool lesson. I do want feedback. It is long. It's a little, but I think it's powerful.
Okay. So for this week, we have an RTD lesson on Thursday, correct? And then 2 on Friday. Okay. So is this how many groups?
Yes.
This is for Thursday.
This is actually for Friday. So on Thursday, we are going to revisit the unit conversion.
Oh,
lesson
right.
2.
Right. That first lesson was very long.
Yeah.
So we are doing the second lesson on Thursday. Okay. So these are
So this is going to be a 20-minute. So both lessons are attached here right now, just for you guys to review it.
Okay.
But the how many groups lesson, we're only pulling the students that we identified as like not like using the incorrect operation, and they're going to complete this JIT lesson. It's not like a whole class thing.
Is it these kids at the bottom?
Yes.
I was looking at some of them, like Taranke got both of them right, 2 and 4.
For which one? So the NSA question.
Yeah. For number 2 and number 4, are we looking for kids that got both
Yes.
of those wrong?
We were only looking at question number 4.
So,
Or maybe, I don't think I put them in the correct space.
yeah,
is
Taranke
that
got
the
it
RP?
right.
I would say,
That would be very different.
That may be for the RP 8 question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's move those kids over.
and maybe now that we spoke about question 2 as well, just select the kids for both questions.
Okay. yeah.
Right?
So ones that got, so let me pull up a matrix for just your priority kids. Have you guys
Okay.
done that?
Yeah, it's in, you can filter for it. It says, IA3 and IA2, the student groups. It should say level 2, level 3.
I don't think I can, because I think that's just your question groups. Or
Okay,
your
I
student
shared it
groups.
with everyone.
You did?
Yeah. Let me
6
look at it.
math. No. I don't have it.
I have to learn. I tried to create the group as you showed on the day,
Yeah.
and I couldn't finish. I
I would
created
have
a
to
group,
make
but
it
I couldn't
myself.
add the kids.
Oh, yeah, there's a step that you have to do there. Okay, let me just do this then.
You know that you can't see that.
I know.
You want to just take a look at this, the groups that I have it in?
Yeah, that's probably easier.
Yes. So we didn't enter Nate's score, because Z suspects that he was cheating off of Carmelo based on his work, and we told him to redo it, but we didn't have enough time for him to redo the whole thing. Okay. So those are the two students. You know, this down here, level 2 IE3 and level 3 IE.
Oh, I wonder. I wasn't looking there.
You go to the additional filters on the left. Right there.
I don't have
The blue headband,
Oh,
additional filters, and then on the right, in the right column.
oh, level 2 IA3 target students.
Yes, at level 3.
Okay.
IE3 target
If
students.
it's possible, can you rename that to 6th grade?
Okay.
But wait, I still want to look on here. Oh, you did it as a,
Yeah, I think I was looking at the standards just now.
okay, so
Look at the
for number
matrix.
4.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Can we discuss grouping a little later and then talk about the next gap?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
We'll
RPA
come back to
3.
this.
So again, I did like recognize when I searched and eliminate that there was these 3 questions, but I don't know why I was like prioritizing like looking at Q15 instead of looking at all of them. So the gaps that I identified were specifically for Q15, but we're gonna go back in. Sorry, you can see right here in the red part, we're actually like going back for each of the questions.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start right there. So for Q15, like students are still struggling to accurately solve multi-step ratio problems, kind of like similar to what we discussed last week. Like students can identify unit rate, because we discussed that last week. We're trying to definitely like zoom between who can identify unit rate, but still don't know what the next step is based on the information presented. And then for Q10, that's the one we saw 90% because it was very much like straightforward, like it was like find a unit rate. So we saw some students scaling down to find a unit rate, but then we also saw some students think about the relationship between 20 and 30. So then they found like 125 and added that to the 250 because they recognized that the 20 feet plus the 10 feet will get them to 30 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Did any of
Interesting
them
strategy.
like cross multiply? Like, that's how I did it.
Jason cross
My
multiplied.
Jason?
Yes.
Okay,
Jason
good.
cross multiplied. And I
So
was like,
they don't like this strategy of setting it up proportion.
a lot of kids, yeah, even when
They
some
like
students,
finding unit rate first.
yeah, some students use a ratio table, but for some
Okay.
reason, they're still pulling back on actually like using a ratio proportion. Yeah.
Okay. And
Interesting.
this is a super powerful strategy, so I would say we should try to focus on that.
Okay.
Because this strategy solve any problem,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily calculate unit rate all of the time. You can go
Yeah.
directly here and
Yeah.
get it. It also helps with equivalent fractions or equivalent ratio problems. So it's a transferable strategy that can be used in many different problems. Right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I agree. I think I showed Jolie that before, especially like when dividing, thinking about like the groups. So it's like, and she was using that a lot when we were doing percentage. So that's definitely a little bit more like get students like thinking more about this and like their reasoning. And then we saw some students who just did not know how to calculate, like they struggled to like either find a unit rate, which was 12.5, or they just did not have any reasoning around like the numbers to think flexibly about what they needed to do. And then for question 13, we're 70%.
Really quick, this is a proper annotation that we want kids to be doing.
Okay,
Right.
ratio. Okay, yep.
So this is like a little template that you could say, this is how you set up, and this is how you should write.
Okay.
This is my given ratio, numerator, denominator.
Mhm.
This is my unknown ratio. It has a variable and a number. And what does my numerator represent? Bricks. What's my denominator represent? Feet. So everything is labeled. Now I go across.
We've been reinforcing later,
That's how
especially
I
when
did it,
we were doing unit conversion yesterday. You know, we've been reinforcing that. And then for question 13, we saw students similarly like scaling down to find a unit rate. I think the majority of students like understood the relationship that like 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour, which
Okay,
then we saw
great.
students making that note on their paper.
That's
really
great.
good.
Because that's something that we missed on,
On
we've seen
another
on
one,
another
yeah.
one.
Yeah. So, and we kind of like touched on that on the last, the multi-step ratio JIT that we had, because there were some ratio problems involving time. So thinking about like how you can like make sure you're identifying a relationship and what to do. So some students, recognize that they can divide by 5 minutes to get 600 feet, I think, for 1 minute. And then we also saw some students recognizing that like 12 times 5 is 60. So then some students just scaled up multiplying by 12 to get to the final answer. And then we also saw students who, similarly to last week, they were just randomly multiplying numbers. They did not know what to do with 1, 2, 3, 4 axes. And that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of our students that were capital.
Okay. Okay, so then the plan for this gap. So let's talk about what is the like summary gap of these questions?
Again, like multi-step, like how to solve multi-step ratio problems, because a lot of students, and maybe because we've been prioritizing like how to find a unit rate, but then they don't, some of them think, they're not thinking that's the final answer because they are attempting to do something else, but whatever they're attempting to do is completely inaccurate. So going back into like how you said, like when we have word problems, intentional annotating, and think about what is the meaning of this problem, how are the numbers related to each other before solving, and like labeling your work, or even like labeling the parts of the question.
Okay. Okay. So then action plan for this one is going to be a small group.
Yes.
What is the rest of the group going to be doing?
The rest of the group on Friday can do an error analysis. So a lot of our students, when we look at the standards, they're like at 60%, 70%. And because the goal is 80%, we wanna like identify like what students are struggling with and is it kind of, so we're primarily focusing on the level 2 and 3s, but now like going back into the rest of the mastery checks to identify like which students we know this can be a quick hit. So that, you know, maybe some students just making like silly calculation errors. Z and I both noticed too, like students have a calculator and a lot of them are still afraid to use the calculator. So they're wasting time doing all this additional calculations on their papers or just putting the numbers in the calculator. So these are like quick hits that we can circulate around while students have their mastery.
What is the error analysis gonna look like?
Similar to last week, identifying 1 or 2 questions that we know that students can get to 80% on that particular standard, reprinting that out. And then what I did last week is I took pictures of students' work and kind of like, what did they do wrong? What feedback do you have for the students? And then they were able to go back and redo the problem.
Okay.
And we looked something similar to that.
How did that go?
It went really well because we saw changes this week. Like Peyton was in a small group. Peyton used unit rate. She was able to find it. Christian, we also saw effectively a mirror as well. So we see that like students that we're pulling that had this gap, that we were able to put them in small group and do like that directly teach. We're actually seeing like them making progress, which is impressive. I was grading and I was really surprised by some of the stuff I saw. And some of our kids that we know like have historically been struggling. I was kind of surprised by Landon's work this week. Landon performed, we had a level 1. And I think it's been a long time since Landon had a level 1. I already pulled them and discussed his work. Landon is still struggling with racial relationship representation. He does a lot of skip counting. So he knows there's a pattern, but he doesn't understand like how to actually set it up using a ratio table or ratio proportion.
I was also, Cynthia, anything else with the gap or with the, because I know you have to run, or with the like plan that they have? And like some of it still needs to be planned, but
I would say when just thinking about the plan itself and when you write it, just try to think more of the concept or habit gap instead of a very specific question gap, right? So for example, you wrote here group 1, a small group. I kind of like changed to group 1 is multi-step problems, and reteach finding the wages earned per hour by dividing the total amount earned by the given hours. That's a very specific action plan, as if you're just reteaching that question. That's not what we want, something broader. We want to reteach the concept and the habits of mind that involve solving multi-step problems. What do you need to be successful in any multi-step problem about ratios that is going to come your way? Okay, so always think about, okay, you got this wrong here, but there are many multi-step problems. It doesn't have to be, it can be related to income and money, but it can also have other contexts that are not related to money, but have this, they are similar, right? And you should be able to transfer, and the way you guys are teaching should be transferable to other types of problems. So just think about that. Also, when you select the problems that you're putting, don't put all problems about money. Put speed, right? Put whatever, fruits, people, do a mix of things. And then try to have like a meta moment after you solve maybe 3, or they solve and you guys discuss. Guys, let's just take a moment. Let's look at these 3 problems. One was about money, one was about speed and distance, and one was about whatever. What is similar? What is different? Just look at your paper. How did you solve? How did annotating, intentionally annotating and labeling your given ratio, your unknown ratio, helped you solve those 3 different problems? And then are they really, really different? Right?
So pushing that.
Having that reflection moment.
I mean, we didn't discuss it, but I was also kind of surprised by, I think it was question number 3. The question, They're also scored 60% of it.
Yeah. You mean surprised like it could have been better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they've-
okay.
They've done better. They've done better on these questions. So,
So most of them put B. So that would mean that they did, how would they have gotten 10? Is that 15? No.
so they squared the 15 instead of squaring the 5. But no,
No.
sorry, they didn't square it. They multiplied the base by the exponent.
Yeah.
They did
Oh,
10.
yes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they did do
3
that.
times 5 is 15.
Yeah.
Yep, and then, yeah.
And
3
then
five
times 2.
Yeah,
That's
so they
a,
did 30
yeah.
minus 20.
Mhm.
that is a quick
That's the
hit.
main distraction.
I think that's something that you could throw in.
Yeah, I have one question here.
Okay. Yeah.
So, just the overall plan for the whole week would be one lesson is the unit conversion,
Mhm.
right? I was trying to write on the top here. Then
Yes.
20 minutes fraction division small group, then
And ratio.
one
And
full
ratio.
block
It's
Right?
not, oh yeah,
or
fraction
one
division.
period.
Yeah.
One period of ratio.
Mhm.
Or we can do the ratio at the same time as the fraction.
Yeah, I think it should be 20 minutes division and 20 minutes RP because those kids are in both groups.
That's
Oh,
Friday.
Yeah, that's Friday.
But you have 90 minutes.
Yeah.
No, for one period. So it will be, since it's a quick hit, so it'll be 20 minutes on this,
Fraction
yeah,
division.
and then 20 minutes on RP.
And then,
And
what's
then for the
rest?
next period, we wanted to kind of like visit like some of the concepts that are gonna be coming up that
Okay.
students haven't seen before.
Okay.
Not haven't seen before, haven't seen in a while.
Okay.
I would say, again, I would try to maybe put 30 minutes for
Mhm.
review for the
Okay.
next mastery.
So
Mhm.
60, 30, like what we
Yeah.
talked about with seventh
And
grade.
then a whole period for ratio,
Yes.
splitting into
Okay.
one-step problems, meaning you need a foundation for ratio and then multi-step.
Okay.
And then go deep the whole 45 minutes. And then
Mhm.
the other period you do 20 minutes of fraction division. And then 30 minutes review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. So Thursday is the conversion lesson. So I'm planning on pulling my small groups for that lesson on the second block. I can only go until 12:30,
Okay.
but I will pull them from 12 to 12:30. Friday, I'm not around.
Mhm.
But I do want to go over there's a couple of kids in my group that got the fraction division wrong that I want to go over with them.
Okay.
So
The procedure is updated.
well, I'm just looking at the data. There's like 2 or 3 of them that got it wrong. And my guess is that they didn't write total part and part. That is my guess without looking at their work yet.
Okay.
So I may pull them at some point tomorrow, even though that's not what the plan is.
Okay. So basically for Friday, Cynthia, 45 minutes RP and then like 20 minutes division. And then the last 25 minutes,
Yeah, 25.
we can spend on like revisiting topics. For
Mhm.
the big meeting.
Yeah. I don't remember what's on the next mastery, but as quick suggestion on the question that you guys were talking, and sorry, I don't have a meeting now.
Oh, you got confused? Okay.
Yeah.
This is,
Um,
oh no, this is, I have the master in front
You
of
have
me. You
it?
don't have it? Okay, yeah, I have it. I didn't do it, but I have it.
So I was gonna try. Question number, let's say easy question. Question 2. Question number 6. For part 1.
Are these the masters?
Yes. And then our small groups.
Question would be, should that output for the last week be 10?
It's 20 divided by 2. For this one, it will be 20.
Oh, sure. What is this table looking weird?
Yeah, I think for, but the,
They're all, if you multiply X by 4, you get Y for each of them except the last one.
Yeah.
Assuming it should be 10.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh.
None of the kids that I've told them I'm not finding any stuff.
where are the level 2 issues? Do you have
They're over.
Oh,
They're-
I would, so based off
they
of
might be
like,
now.
I was
Yeah.
concerned about,
It's this phone.
oh, okay. I was concerned about Damien, because he scored a level 1, is that unusual for him?
It's not unusual.
So then,
I'm
does it
very
make
concerned
sense
about
for
it.
him to be in my group? Like, is he actually somebody who like we can move over the line of proficiency?
You've been getting 2 all the IAs, you got a 2 on.
With his password.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, let's give it an A.
Okay.
And then is there anyone that you want to move?
As of right now, no. No. I'm still kind of, every time I look at Jason's work, sometimes it's like, we can see that he's like understanding the work, but then sometimes you look at it and you have no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like word problems here on the next mastery. I'm thinking about the IA3 reteach for Monday. If you think the unit conversions was long, this one is gonna be long as well. So just throwing out an idea here. Maybe do one of those lessons on Friday. And then on Monday, you do the second plus the review.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. You know why? I think they're really gonna benefit from, it's exactly about word problems, the RTD lesson.
Both lessons are.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. They're sequence, though. It's always one topic with a sequence. And having them actually broken in 2 days, I think it's even beneficial because you're gonna forget and then you have a chance to remember again.
Yeah.
You know, you give your brain some time to like process.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's just revise this then. So 1 period, unit conversion IA3 RTD is happening on Thursday. Friday is
45 minutes JIT and RP. That will be 2 different, like one with multi-step and one with kind of like reinforcing how to find a unit rate. And then period 2 will do the word problem JIT that we were gonna do on Monday. But you're not putting anyone on Friday, right?
No.
Okay. So word problem JIT, so we'll do lesson 1 on Friday, and then we'll do lesson 2, period 1 on Monday. And then period 2, we'll have that 20-minute JIT on division, and then.
and the review.
Yeah.
Okay.